Coming at you very casual today because we're about to go to the beach. I want to bring one of my new books with me to the beach, and I need to tell you guys what we're reading today. I went to Barnes & Noble and I picked 3 books solely based on the cover. I purposely chose books that I had not heard anyone talk about because I didn't want to go in with any preconceived notions. I truly wanted to go in blind and solely judge a book by its cover and see how good my taste is in books. So I have 2 physicals and then one I'm actually going to read on Kindle. I saw it in Barnes & Noble in the physical edition and absolutely loved it, but then I checked and it is on Kindle Unlimited, so I didn't want to like waste money buying the physical when I could basically get it like for free. One thing I've learned about myself through this experiment is that I love the color blue, because here are the 3 covers that I liked. As you can see, they're all just varying shades of blue. So any authors out there, if you want me to buy your book, just make it pretty in blue and you'll have me sucked in. What I am going to start with today, since we are going to be on the beach, like I just want like a very light, easy beach read. This is called The Frame Up by Gwenda Bond. And what I loved about this cover is they're wearing like burglar hats. You know those black caps that like the guys in Home Alone wore? Whenever I saw that, I was like, oh, are they like art thieves? Because they're taking paintings, and that's like the first line of the back. So it says, Danny Passant is the daughter and former accomplice of the world's most famous art thief. There was no job too big for Maria and her loyal crew. The secret to their success, a little thing called magic, kept rigorously secret from the non-magical world. They seemed unstoppable until a teenage Danny turned her mother over to the FBI. Oh my god, this just got better. Now there's a magical element to this. So far, I'm feeling great. This literally sounds right up my alley. It's also kind of funny because currently Hunter and I are watching White Collar. I've previously watched the show, but this is his first time. And rewatching it, I'm like, damn, this is such a good show. And if you don't know, it's about a world-renowned art thief, and the FBI brings him on as a consultant to help him solve white-collar crime cases. And so you follow him and this FBI agent Peter Burke as they solve cases, but also Neil, the art thief, usually has something cooking on the side where he's, you know, still dibble-dallying in some maybe non-legal activities. It's such a good show, and I feel like this book is actually so similar. I'm going to get my beach bag ready, pick up an acai bowl on the way, and then we'll start reading. Update time. I just hit chapter 8, page 75, and the plot has kind of been established for the past few chapters, but this whole book is premised around a heist, and it's broken up into different sections like this, where it says 6 days out, 5 days out, and we're just progressively moving forward to the day of the heist. Our main character, Danny, was found and contacted by her mom's ex-partner named Archer. Her mom is in jail currently, and Archer finds and contacts Danny. And whenever he contacts her, he basically lets her know like, hey, I have one last job that I want you to do, and then you can get your life back. I can get you the home that you grew up in, and then I can get you back in contact with your mom, because obviously putting her mom in jail, her and her mom don't have the best relationship right now. And Danny has just been alone doing her own jobs here and there since Fallout whenever she was 17. So Danny like really doesn't have much to lose, even though this job is kind of like this impossible job. So if you like movies similar to the Italian Job or like the Ocean's movies, where it's kind of like this impossible heist and you need to get the gang back together to get it complete, that's kind of what we're doing so far in this book. The collection they're trying to steal is the Hackworth collection, and they term it or nickname it the Fortress of Art and kind of like joke that it's more secure than Fort Knox. There was this eccentric collector, William Hackworth. He passed away and left it to his son, Brad Hackworth, but there were all of these stipulations in the will, and it's taken 5 years for them actually to like release the collection to the public. Archer managed to get Danny a job with the Hackworths as a security consultant, and in the meantime, before the pieces actually like go out for auction, Danny needs to figure out the weaknesses in the gallery or building that the pieces are currently in and steal a specific portrait of Archer that he wants for himself. In the very, very, very background of things, there is like a magical element, and the magic in this world is like very unique. Not everyone has magic, but a lot of people kind of in this like underground world, thievery world, have specific magical abilities, but their magic is like not all encompassing. You really only get like one specific skill that they use to their advantage. So like her mom, her skill was the ability of persuasion or like muddling minds. There was another guy in the crew who could put someone to sleep just with touch. And then there was another person who could kind of like manipulate technology. So everyone kind of like has different magical abilities, but it's very, very niche and specific. I've not really been able to figure out what Danny's ability is. I spoke earlier when I said that we didn't know what Danny's power was. Danny's power is through painting. She's basically able to like recreate masterpieces. Whenever you view her pieces, you cannot tell the difference. So it makes her very handy for art theft because she can recreate the pieces. I am now on chapter 18, probably coming up on 2/3 of the way through this book, and we're taking an interesting turn. We just learned a lot about Archer and maybe some of the darknesses that lie within him, but this is really taking like a magical fantasy turn, which I wasn't expecting. Magic has been like lightly touched on here and there. Like I mentioned, everyone kind of has like a certain power. Like it was just kind of something in the background, but now like we just had this really long chapter that got like a little dark, way darker than I was expecting, all regarding magic. I don't know if I'm fully loving this book. Like right now, I'm probably assuming that this is like a 3 stars because overall, I like the idea of this book and the topics that we're talking about, like art theft, con man, cunning characters, and then like a sprinkling of magic. Like that should be something that's perfectly up my alley, but it really feels like I am reading. Every time I get to a new chapter, I'm like, oh, thank God. And I'm getting through this, like overall, I would say pretty slowly, put in close to 4 full hours reading, and I'm not even at page 200. Just for my rate of reading, I would have expected to be farther along. I don't think there's like anything specifically bad about the writing. For some reason, I'm just not getting immersed in it. So that's my update. Unless something crazy happens, we'll probably just check in at the end of this book. Once I finish, I will check back in and give you guys my final rating. All done. Officially finished the frame up. As you could probably tell from my review last night, didn't love it. Think it is comfortably a 3 stars. It does seem like any potential plot holes, the author just covered them up with magic because magic was so not used in the beginning, and then the second half of the book was like only magic. So I don't know, it kind of potentially seems like maybe a lazy way of writing, just like instead of having a good story for anything, like we just call it magic and then we're done with. So I don't know, I feel bad because the premise of this book was like so up my alley, but I didn't love it. So let's hope for better luck tomorrow. Our next book is going to be Notes on Your Sudden Disappearance by Alison Espach. Not sure how to say that last name, but we can talk more about this book tomorrow. Hi guys. Good morning. Fun fact about me, I am the least morning person you will ever meet. I hate the mornings. It's a rainy, dreary Friday, so I have the day off and I want to make sure that I start this book with enough time because our last book took me way too long to read. This is almost exactly the same number of pages. The last book was like 335 pages and this is 338. One thing I noticed that I hate is that there are no chapter numbers. And I love looking at, how many chapters do I have left? What percentage am I through? If I look this up on Spotify through their audiobooks, looks like there are 29 chapters. Supposedly it takes 12 hours and 17 minutes through the audiobook. Whenever I picked this up, literally knew nothing about this. I've never heard of someone talking about this. Based on the cover, I would imagine that it's like literary fiction, maybe based in the summertime. Those were like kind of my initial guesses. I think overall, my genre guess is correct. On Goodreads, the genres are fiction, romance, contemporary, mystery, audiobook, coming of age, thriller, mystery thriller, literary fiction, adult. I'm kind of scared about the whole mystery thriller aspect because I think I'm maybe gonna be scared. Since the top genre isn't mystery, I think we should be okay. And my battery's dying. One moment. Okay, I'm back with a new battery. Like I was saying, since mystery isn't the top genre for this, I'm hoping that I should be okay. I am not a true crime girly, a thriller girly. I do not watch horror movies. I have to be super conscious of like the things I watch or the things I read because I get honestly really scared and I have really bad nightmares, and I don't need anything increasing the likelihood of me having a nightmare because they happen enough. Reading the back of this book, it says, Sally Holt has always been mystified by the things her older sister Kathy seems to have been born knowing. Kathy has answers for all of Sally's questions about life, about love, and about Billy Barnes, a rising senior and local basketball star who mans the concession stand at the town pool. Billy's unfathomable, otherworldly cool puts him on a different planet until a tragedy leaves Sally's life forever intertwined with his. Opening in the early 90s and charting almost 2 decades of shared history and misconnection, Notes on Your Sudden Disappearance is a dazzling, unconventional love story that brims with the unexpected moments of joy. Okay. I don't feel like I really know much more about where this story is going to go, except it sounds like it's going to focus a lot on our main character, Sally, and her relationship to her sister, Kathy, and then potentially how this Billy Barnes guy loops into that. It starts with the State of the Union, 1998. Let's hop in. Not far into this, but we're on page 14. And so far, everything is through Sally's point of view. So like first person point of view, we're just kind of getting the backstory on her sister, Kathy. And the first line of the book is, "You disappeared on a school night." We know that Kathy's going to go missing, but at this point we're just hearing about their elementary school and middle school timeline and kind of how this guy, Billy Barnes, plays a part in it. To describe how Sally was kind of always in Kathy's shadows, listen to this interaction with their grandma. "You're so beautiful, Kathy," Grandma said. "You could be an anchor woman one day." And then she turned to me. "How desperate I must have looked, standing next to you, waiting for my compliment. And you, little Sally," she said. "You're so smart and quiet and well behaved. I bet you'd make a great nun someday." I have a feeling that Sally's going to be often forgot in this family, not only because she was the second child, but because once Kathy eventually goes missing, the parents are so distraught over that missing child that Sally is just forgotten further. Okay, this is literally 2 pages later, but the undertone of the writing has like a very dark undertone. Her sister Kathy just sang the national anthem before a high school basketball game, and Billy's on the team, and Billy missed like all of his shots that night. He had a terrible game and the team ended up losing. So as Sally, Kathy, and their family are leaving, they're watching the team do sit-ups, push-ups, laps. It's like physical punishment for losing the game. And Sally says, they were all sprinting as fast as they could in a straight line, and it gave me the same feeling I got when my history teacher showed us that slideshow of all the Hitler youth, the brown uniforms that turned them all the same. Turned into killers overnight, just like that, my teacher said, and snapped his fingers. Like, hey boys, here's your uniform. Congratulations, you're a monster now. Is Billy our killer? Because it kind of seems like that's what we're painting him out to be. To chapter 2. Okay, so made some decent progress. We're like 25% of the way through this book. Section 1 ends with us finding out what happened to Kathy. I won't spoil what happens to her, but I am happy that it's not as sinister as I thought it was going to be, or like I'm not as scared. I was very much like, what is going to happen to this poor girl? Like, was she, I won't even go into my theories, but I was going real dark with what happened to Kathy, and it's not as dark as I was expecting. So now we're starting post Kathy's disappearance and kind of how the family is doing post her not being there. I am very happy to report that this book is moving by so much quicker than the last one. So far, I mean, it's like very melancholy, and there are other mentions, you know, similar to like that Nazi mention that are just kind of like, whoa, that's weirdly dark. Our main character, Sally, like is weirdly obsessed with dark things and death. It seems like she's writing these events as if they have taken place in past tense. Present tense, or present Sally, clearly has been affected by like her sister's disappearance and things of that nature, and just seems to have a fascination with these types of things. She's a little bit of a strange main character. She's a bit of a social outcast growing up, and I think that's part of why she idolized her sister so much, because her sister, it just seems like everything came naturally to her. Like, she was the pretty girl, she dated the popular guy, she didn't get nervous singing in front of a crowd, she could talk without stumbling on her words or doubting herself. And then Sally has just always been seen as like this very shy child, kind of in her sister's shadows. So far so good. I do like this book, and it is very different from what I have been reading this month. I don't know if this is like something I'd continually want to read, but it at least changes up the pace very nicely. This was a strange book. I definitely know I couldn't read something like this too often, because a large majority of this I was getting in like a really weird, disassociated, depressive haze mood. But I do think the ending, I liked the ending. Our narrator was weird, especially during her teenage years. A lot of like the middle portion of the book, it felt like we were just watching a train wreck in slow-mo, and I wanted to like reach out and hug her because I was so concerned about her. But I feel like the ending makes me have a more positive view on this book. If the ending was bad, my thoughts and feelings probably would have been real negative, but I think the author did a really good job of wrapping this up. So that is book 2 of 3 done. Hi guys, I'm here to talk about our third book, which is Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. This is the first book in the Celestial Kingdom duology. And let's just take a moment for this cover. she's stunning, but also books number 2 and 2.5 equally as stunning. I would buy all of these books solely based on their cover. I'm pulling up the Goodreads summary of this book because I tried explaining this book last night and honestly it was kind of a train wreck. One big thing to be aware of with this book is that it's all based on Chinese mythology. This is my first time ever reading about Chinese mythology. I hardly know anything about Greek mythology. I really don't know anything about Chinese mythology. Apologies in advance if I ever end up explaining anything poorly with this book or mispronounce names. I am truly doing my best. But let's start with our main character. Her name is Xingyan, but as the title would suggest, she is the daughter of the moon goddess and grew up on the moon. Ultimately, she's unaware that she's being hidden away from the Celestial Emperor and the Celestial Kingdom because we find out in chapter 1 that her mom was actually exiled to the moon, and the moon is basically like her prison. She's forbidden to leave it, and Xingyan was unaware of that growing up. She grew up basically alone with her mom on the moon and never really thought anything of it. One day Xingyan accidentally flares her magic and it sparks the interest of the emperor and the empress, and they end up coming to the moon to investigate. Her mother afterwards is spooked and Xingyan is forced to flee her home and has to leave her mother behind, and she ends up making her way to the Celestial Kingdom. This is not where she was intending to go or where she wants to be because obviously the Celestial Emperor and Empress are in the Celestial Kingdom. She ends up disguising her identity and working for a family basically as a servant where she's able to remain anonymous. However, one day she's at the river and a man starts talking to her. She's really emotional at the time of them starting talking. She's crying, she's missing her family, she's missing her mom, and we soon find out the man she's talking to is actually the prince. His name is Prince Liwei. And there's this competition going on right now where you have a chance to be like the companion of the prince and learn alongside him. Her and 12 other girls go to the Celestial Kingdom for this competition where she realizes that the prince's mom is the Celestial Empress that was threatening her mom the last time she saw her. So she's kind of freaking out, but she ends up actually winning the competition, and that's where I left off so far. That was at the end of chapter 4. Now Xingyan is not having to be a servant for that family, and then she has an opportunity to work with this prince and learn more about her power. Ultimately, her goal is going to be perfect her magic enough that she's able to go back to the moon and save her mother. This is through and through fantasy to me, but Goodreads has this marked as romance, mythology, young adult, fiction, audiobook, young adult fantasy, magic, historical fiction, and adult as the different genres that it encompasses. I haven't really gotten to much of the romance part, but it does seem like that's going to be a large portion of where the story goes. My next check-in will probably be around midway, once the plot is more established and we can see how much she's able to learn while working with Prince. Let's do a quick update on Daughter of the Moon Goddess. Currently, I'm at about 55%. So once Xingyan actually wins that competition, she starts her training and learnings with Prince Liwei. And she actually ends up studying and learning with him and all the different teachers for over 2 years, potentially 2 to 3 years. Ultimately, through her learnings, she discovered that she's really good with archery, and the military offers her a position. She's keen to take the military position because, similar to almost think of a Purple Heart award by the US military, there's this talisman or this special award that gets awarded to exceptional soldiers, and if they do something amazing for the kingdom, they can get this talisman, and it grants them I think one favor or one ask from the emperor or empress. So our girl's goal is to join the military, do some crazy mission, get awarded this talisman, and then use her wish to free her mother. One thing I do really like is the world is so ethereal. I'll include some pictures of kind of the fan art because so much of it takes place within the Celestial Kingdom. And it sounds gorgeous and magical, but almost there's too much description in the book. Every single place has so much ornate description. Every single person has so much ornate description. Every time she gets dressed in the day has so much description. I can kind of tell whenever the author is going into like a very overly detailed explanation of something. And it's like, okay, I'm just gonna kind of skim this because all they're really doing is putting on a robe. I don't need to know all the intricacies of this robe every single time. It is a bit long and I do end up skimming some sections more than others. On my Kindle, the book is just over 500 pages and I'm currently on page 282. Do I need 282 pages to get to where we're at in the story? No. Do I think the story probably warrants 500 pages? No. I would say the story could be accomplished easily with like 350 to 400 pages. Sometimes in fantasies, it's necessary, but it kind of seems like we've described the same robes and the same gemstones and the same treasures over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, that it does just like feel redundant. And now it's like losing the magical element of it because the author's trying so hard for it to be magical. By no means does that mean that I don't like this book, but do I love this book? No. Based on how this ends will determine if I continue the series or not. But if the ending's a flop, I'll just stop here because I do feel like I'm starting to get a little slumpy. I still have to read A Court of Wings and Ruin, which is a 700-page book, and that currently sounds like the last thing I want to do after this 500-page fantasy. So that is my update for now. I will come back once I finish this book and give you my final thoughts. Final update time. I have finally finished reading Daughter of the Moon Goddess. It only took me 5 days to read, which I'm just gonna say points to kind of how I feel about this book. It felt like every night I was forcing myself to read. I would set a chapter goal that I wanted to get to, and I would just force myself to get there and just be constantly counting down like, okay, 4 more chapters left, 3 more, 2 more. Almost feeling relieved whenever it was over. I don't think anything about the writing was particularly bad. I completely understood what the author was trying to do about painting the picture. I truly think she did everything in her power to build that imagery, but ultimately I think she focused on it a bit too much. When I would have preferred if she had our main character have a bit more depth, or have the plot line be a little bit more complex, maybe incorporating a few more plot twists along the way. I will say once you get to part 3, there is a pretty big plot twist that happens. I don't think the plot twist was like so well done that it came out of nowhere and you wouldn't be able to guess it. I don't think it's that like revolutionary of a plot twist, and the author definitely gave plenty of chances to be able to guess that it was going to happen. So if I had to tier rank the 3 books I read, at the bottom slot has got to be The Frame Up. I was just so happy to have this book be over. At first, I rated it a 3 stars, but I've done some digging about what is the difference between a 2 stars versus a 3 stars. And I found this rating scale last night that I actually really like. So 2 stars is didn't do it for me. Disliked more than I liked, and if I finished it, it was a struggle. 3 stars is a good / average read. I liked it, but it wasn't something that I was obsessed with. So going off of that, I'm going to give this a 2.5 stars because I disliked more than I liked about it. I didn't connect to any of the characters. I felt like the story dragged on. And then I felt like the author's implementation of the magic was a little bit bizarre. There was no reason this book needed to be a fantasy. I think the author just did it so that she didn't actually have to like plan out a heist that made sense. So for that, I'm gonna have to knock it, and you're getting a 2.5. In the middle is going to be Daughter of the Moon Goddess. I've settled on just a flat 3-star rating. I wasn't actively disliking it. I just thought it could have been better, and it's not something that I'm ever going to think about again or recommend to anyone. Daughter of the Moon Goddess, 3 stars. My favorite book of the video is the book that is 100% the most outside of my comfort zone. If I had actually fully realized what this plot was about, I don't know if I would have ever bought this book, but overall it did elicit the most amount of feelings. Even if they were uncomfortable, they were at least feelings. And I felt like the author actually had something unique. So I landed on a 3.5 because this isn't one of my new favorite books, but I can appreciate what the author did here, and I do think it was well written. But after all of that, I am somewhat glad to have this video behind me. The last 7 days reading these 3 books has felt long. I just want something bingeable now. Something with hardly any brain power that I can just sit back, relax, and enjoy. So for now, I will love you and leave you. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will catch you in my next video.